I move that the Employment Relations Trial Periods Amendment Bill be now read a first time. The Employment Relations Trial Periods Amendment Bill extends the availability of 90-day trials to all employers. It repeals the previous government's policy of restricting this availability of trial periods to only small businesses. Currently, only employers with fewer than 20 employees can include a trial period of up to 90 days in their employment agreements. By extending the 90-day trial periods to all businesses, this will make a huge difference to the flexibility of the labour market because larger businesses employ around 72% of all employees across New Zealand. The bill is being debated under urgency because in this government's coalition agreement for the first 100 days, we want to restore business optimism, scrutiny, certainty, confidence before Christmas. This government has inherited a bleak economic outlook thanks to the previous government's reckless spending and over-regulation. There is no time to waste in getting labour market settings right to ensure both businesses and workers can keep their heads above water. The 90-day trial periods were introduced in 2009 for small businesses and were extended to all employers in 2011. Extending the 90-day trials was part of a package of reforms that's intended to reduce costs, support more effective and efficient processes, and improve the workplace productivity and flexibility. In 2019, the previous Labour-led government restricted the availability of trial periods to smaller employers, those with fewer than 20 employees. And this government has heard the message loud and clear from businesses that they want 90-day trials back. And this is a government that will deliver. Whether a business has 2 or 200 employees, bringing on any employee takes time, it takes money, it takes risk, and it's in the best interests of both the employer and the employee to have the right fit in the workplace. Getting the wrong person can have a detrimental impact on a business and the whole culture within a workplace. Employers have consistently highlighted that the costs associated with dismissing an employee and the risk of a personal grievance claim can make them reluctant to hire a new staff member. Apart from the costs of the dismissal process, retaining an employee who is a poor fit for a business can have a detrimental effect on the overall workplace as a whole. It will only take one worker who's got a poor attitude or simply doesn't have the right skills for the job to perform their duties to take down an otherwise very productive team. The costs and risks associated with this dismissal process could lead to a labour market with fewer employment opportunities, particularly for those people who are doing their best to get a foot in the door. The costly dismissal processes can also make workplaces less productive. When businesses can only employ a certain number of people at a time because they are resource constrained, having a worker who is a poor match for the job can mean that more suitable job candidates end up missing out when they could have been in the best interest of that company. I have heard from businesses time and time again that expanding the availability of the 90-day trials would be one of their top priorities when it comes to lifting unnecessary regulations that they face every day. This bill will help farmers. Unlike most businesses, farmers don't just offer prospective employees a job, but they ask them to live on the property because it's common for farmers to provide on-farm accommodation as part of their employment. Retailers have said that the 90-day trial has meant that employers have to be prepared to take a risk to bring on new staff members who may not be the best fit. And we need people who are given the opportunity to prove themselves. People who have a checkered employment history or a criminal background may not be given the opportunity because they don't have that ability for their business owners to take a chance. Business New Zealand identified that reinstating the 90-day trials is an election priority, and the Employment and Manufacturers Association did as well. This bill is intended to encourage employers to take on new staff by reducing risk in their hiring process. It's particularly the case when employers are considering employing someone who doesn't tick all the boxes. They might not have the right skills, they might not have the right experience, but they might have the right attitude. And this is a government that says we should give them a go. Workers who are just starting out in their career and they've had a break from working or they're looking for a change will benefit from this bill. Workers that might be considered risky will benefit from this bill. Starting a business is incredibly brave. Taking on employees is incredibly brave, and this bill will provide more flexibility in the labour market, which is good for both employers and employees. I commend this bill to the House.
That's right. Fantastic.
Well, here we are under urgency, another week of this government taking New Zealand backwards, and another bill attacking working people. I note the Minister can't even speak for her full allocated time, even though we're in urgency and there's no select committee process. And I have sympathy for the Minister because there is absolutely nothing to back up this policy that she is putting through to extend trial periods. Her own officials in the regulatory impact statement, and I do commend the officials for actually producing one in relation to this bill, says, what should we do? Should we extend this? No, we should stick with the status quo. That's what it says in the RIS produced by the Minister's own officials. So what could the possible reason be for doing this, extending this policy? Is there evidence that it actually does increase hiring? Is there evidence that it makes it easier for people to actually get work or hire people? No, the evidence says exactly the opposite. And this isn't my evidence, this isn't trade union evidence, this is evidence commissioned by Treasury. Treasury says it doesn't make a difference. So why are we doing this? And Madam Speaker, the only thing I can come up with is this government hates working people. You hate working people. This government this is a second bill in 2 weeks to go under urgency that makes absolutely no difference in benefits to working people, may have some benefits in the sense of employers not wanting to go through fair processes to actually dismiss employees, which is totally available under New Zealand law. If you have an issue with performance, if you have an issue for conduct, you can go through a fair process and that employee can be dismissed as in New Zealand. That can already happen. So I was interested, Madam Speaker, to read on the cover of the Post this week that the Minister of Finance said that she believes in leadership, it's important to take New Zealanders with her. And I asked this government, which New Zealanders are they taking with them? Not working people, for sure. The first thing they did through urgency was change the Reserve Bank mandate to take the importance off jobs. The next thing they did, repeal fair pay agreements, attacking wages of working people and conditions. Another thing that they've did, their second week in government, attacking jobs again. This government is not the government for working people. It is taking their rights away with every single breath it takes for absolutely no benefit to the economy. If you look at this research conducted and commissioned by the Treasury, you will see that there is absolutely no benefit on a macro scale to the economy of this policy. It doesn't increase hiring. It doesn't increase the number of people that are taken on. It doesn't make things better for people who are vulnerable. The only thing it does is increase the likelihood of injustice for people who are engaged in work to be dismissed unfairly. And it is a shame and a travesty on this government that they would, under urgency, decide to bring through a bill to this Parliament that doesn't help employers. It doesn't. It doesn't help people that are looking for work. It just extends a policy which is shown in evidence not to work. And we've heard again and again that this government, for some reason, doesn't need to have evidence or arguments to back up this policy, and we've seen the Minister not able to articulate that over her full call because there just isn't anything to back that up. And I would say to the members opposite, electoral mandates do not excuse bad lawmaking. Electoral mandates do not excuse bad lawmaking. And this is bad lawmaking. There is no select committee process. There is no ability for New Zealanders who have strong feelings about trial periods to be able to submit to the select committee process and tell you the impact that it would have on their life. And I won't have time to go through it in the first reading, but I've got examples that have been proactively sent to me by members of the public wanting to make a submission to this piece of legislation and not being able to. I have examples of people emailing me and saying, when will the select committee process be, Camilla? And I have to say to them, unfortunately, the government that has been elected has decided that they do not want to hear from you. That your views that you would normally be able to expect in a normal select committee process are not valid. And I think this government should be ashamed of that, because this is a ridiculous, pointless piece of legislation that just makes it more unfair for people. As we have seen, and as the Minister went through, there have been, it was brought in 2009, it was 20 employees, 2011 it was all employees, 2019 back to 20, and 2023 back to all employees. There is no clarity and no purpose for this bad law, and I do not commend it to the House.
I call the Green Member Ricardo Mendes-March.
Tēnā koe, tamangai. E hara taku toa I te toa takitahi, e nāri taku toa I te toa takitini, which says, my success is not mine alone, but it is the strength of many. And if this government was to live by that saying, they would not continue trampling over workers' rights, trampling over people's ability to have secure employment, and introducing the Employment Relations Trial Periods Amendment Bill, which will see generations of workers in precarious positions being potentially fired for things like having the wrong hair color, for things like having a bereavement, for things like being sick. And the Minister should be ashamed, should be embarrassed, and should go back to her coalition document, which supposedly claims that they will be looking at data and evidence when it comes to decision making, because this bill has no evidential basis, it has no research to back it up, and it is an attack on workers. I want to reflect on the fact that many of the government members keep talking about how the left doesn't own workers. And as I've said before, this government believes in employers owning workers' ability to live, workers' ability to remain in secure housing, by giving employers the ability to get rid of people, to treat them as disposable economic units. And as we head into Christmas, what this government is giving to employers is the ability to fire at will. That's right. And we have to remember that our employment laws are already weighted to favor employers. That power imbalance already exists. It's been decades in the making. It is how capitalism was designed, and this government is simply worsening it and entrenching it. There is research to show that 90-day trials do not work. They do not increase wages. They do not increase working conditions. There is evidence already to support this. And let's not pretend that the government simply has not read the evidence. They've read it and they do not care. They do not care for workers, and they do not care for the evidence that backs up that this piece of legislation is rubbish. This piece of legislation will lead to worsening paying conditions and conditions for workers as well. And we do have also plenty of evidence from workers themselves, stories that they have generously provided to people in this chamber when the previous government was looking at changing how 90-day trials operated. And I just want to touch on, for example, one of those stories from Jessica, who at the time talked about how, quote, I called in sick to work one day. My employer wanted to have a disciplinary meeting about this. And these are the kind of stories, this is the kind of situations that those 90-day trials create. By creating that ability for employers to be able to get rid of workers for whatever reason they like, under the justification of being able to find a good match. All that we are doing is creating a cycle where people will be thrown back into an income support system that was assigned to keep people in poverty, back into low-wage employment, back into that same income support system. Employers will continue being able to pay workers poor wages, and we'll be able to continue treating those workers as disposable labour units. The Green Party understands that our society does not thrive when we treat workers as disposable, that if we want to create a society where people are able to not just survive but to thrive, we need to strengthen the right of workers, not diminish them. So I look forward to the debate and exchanges with the Minister later in the Committee of the Whole House stages to unpack what best available evidence she used, rather than the vibes she chose to carry throughout the election. Rather than the vibes, she's now just speaking to neoliberal and cruel vibes at that. The Green Party will be opposing this bill, and what we will be fighting for is to ensure that this government does not last the test of time, and that we are able to reintroduce protections for workers and go beyond what previous governments have created.
I call Carl Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the Employment Relations Extension of 90-day Trials Period Amendment Bill. Mr. Speaker, as I worked across the Whanganui electorate, visited businesses in Whanganui, in Waverley, in Pātea, in Hawera and in Stratford, I met many business owners who looked to this sort of opportunity to provide opportunities to employees across our electorate. And I know my colleagues across the country who won their seats in the recent election had similar experiences. We also spoke to the employees or potential employees that wanted the opportunity that those employers could give, and that this bill provides for that relationship to occur. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to support the government's 100-day plan to deliver on our commitments and what the voters wanted. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the Honourable Willie Jackson.
Oh, they would have been so proud of that speech too, so well done. They would have thought, what a long way they went with that fabulous, well thought out speech. Mr. Speaker, it's so sad. It's such a sad time, this. We've got such an uncaring government at the moment. And they laugh away. But here we are, we're on 5 days from Christmas, and they've been attacking Māori, attacking workers, and they don't even know what they're doing, Mr. Speaker. They're so stupid. It's just beyond belief. And, you know, they sit there and they don't realise what an arrogant government they are, what a terrible start they've made. Here we are with fair pay agreements thrown out. Now we're kicking the unions for the benefit of the boss. That's what this is all about, Mr. Speaker. It's not about building equality in terms of this country. This is how you rip it down with their ideas. It's so sad, and I think that I was listening to Takuta there, and no regard for Māori, no regard for partnership, no regard for the treaty. It's like it's all been forgotten. We saw that this morning with the repeal of the RMA. There's no reason to extend the 90-day right to sack law beyond small businesses that employed less than 20 people, Mr. Chair. This has been rammed through in terms of urgency because obviously they have to tiptoe around Winston's ego for almost 2 months. What's been rammed through under urgency, Mr. Chair, is a spiteful law. This is a spiteful law, and the government talk like they're the only people who've been involved in business. We know that this type of law can really hurt the vulnerable. They don't know where they're going. They can't plan anything. They're at the whim, Mr. Speaker, of some of these National Party, ACT parties, bosses. They're at their whim, and this is what worries us, and we're trying to work through how we can support our people productively, and this is the best way of doing it. They've been so badly hit in terms of the fair bargaining process. This is not a legislation that helps workers. It only weakens their rights, and that's the danger here. No, this is not opportunity. As we said earlier, you know, we're going to get down to the point where, you know, you're going to just get rid of people because you're just sick of them. It's not legislation that helps workers, it suppresses wages. It's not legislation that helps workers, it just strengthens bosses' rights. That's what the unions have been saying to us. After 6 years in opposition, all National is doing is tearing down what we've put in place. And when's it going to stop? We've got the smoke-free laws, we've got fair bargaining, where we go, we've got Māori Health Authority, and this will catch up, Mr. Speaker, with this government. They've got no vision for New Zealand. It's just about bashing the vulnerable, bashing workers, and bashing Māori. And I just cannot believe how the government can't see the type of damage that's happening, Mr. Speaker. Particularly, I look at the smoke-free stuff. This is all connected. We've got world recognised legislation in terms of smoke-free. World recognised legislation. England have embraced it. But this lot here, throw it out. Throw it out so they can fund their rich mates with their stupid tax cuts. That's what we're talking about. They're wreckers and destroyers, Mr. Chair. This is not how you build an economy or community or society. It's an enormous step backwards, and this is happening and continuing all the time. The state should be against exploiting workers, not enabling it, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'm trying to keep it right in context. I think that's what this is all about. This is a bill. This is a bill that is exploiting the situation with regards to workers. They cannot plan. They cannot get a future in place, all because of the selfishness and greediness of a national government who don't care at all about workers' rights.
Mike Butterick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I speak in support of the Employment Relations Extension of 90-day Trial Periods Amendment Bill. Businesses, both large and small, in our electorate, Central Hawke's Bay, Tararua and the Wairarapa, are facing tough times. Rising interest rates and unworkable legislation are making it difficult to do business. Returning 90-day trials will give them some confidence. The point that the other side of the House misses is that those seeking new employment that may have had a few speed bumps, those vulnerable people, are often those that employers won't take a chance on. What is wrong with an extended trial period where employers will give people a go? Nothing. I'm pleased to support this bill.